because Shane, we have ChatGPT, we have our Gmail, our calendars, Outlook calendars, Zoom meetings, Calendly, Siri, Alexa, all these tools that are structures to help us be optimal and efficient and productive. But the most powerful structures, the connective tissue that has us be human, is the relationship. And I just, it strikes me that that's your core virtue, that's your core essence. How do you tie that into the work you do when you prepare for a meeting, when you're working with meeting professionals, when you want to dial in your message to really hit that bullseye and really calibrate the messaging of what you want to say for a keynote?
I like the use of the word calibrating there. That's really what it's about. And, every single time I meet with a meeting planner, we have a pre-call heading into an event. Of course, they have their logistics they want to work through, but I'm always focused on content because all of my keynotes are customized. What's interesting is, I'm not sitting down and writing a 60-minute script for myself. I have all these, I call them modules. So this isn't a
Sure.
fake background, it's a real background. There's all these pins behind me. And I've now researched on the ground in 100 different cities, towns, villages, crisscrossing 6 continents, what it means to be a community leader, a community builder, how you can essentially build better relationships with anyone from anywhere. And no stage has yet given me the time I would need to
Shane,
share.
I'm sorry. Shane, don't omit the fact that you've been recognized by the White House and the United Nations and all that. Don't just let that slide by, young man.
I,
Okay,
I'll,
all
I'll, I'll
right.
leave that's a humble bragging to you.
Right, but it is, over 100 countries, 6 continents, and you've done the research on the ground, and you have these amazing modules, which I'm well aware of. But I want our listeners to really get a deeper sense of that.
I appreciate that. And yet, I'm waiting for an event planner to say that I have enough time on stage to share 100 stories from 100 places. Hasn't happened yet. So typically on the pre-calls, I ask a whole series, usually about a dozen questions, to really distill the key objectives, themes, what we really want the audience to do differently after the time we spend together. And that helps us together, me and the meeting planners, organizers, distill down and hand select, curate, if you will, 3 or 4 usually stories from 3 or 4 countries that are the best possible fit for that audience, that event, and that time. And so every keynote I deliver is a handful of different stories that come with different frameworks and strategies that lend themselves to relationship building. And I brand it as relationship building, but what are we really talking about in business? Retention, engagement, whether it's external, having more loyal customers and clients, or internally, it's about retention and engagement of your high performing teams and employees. So it can obviously be spun with different corporate language, but at the end of the day, across the board, it's all about those human to human connections and how we can turn every single touch point into an opportunity.
And these 100 countries, 6 continents, the White House, the United Nations, and on, is all, sourced from Count Me In, which is the world's largest millennial movement, led by millennials, world's largest movement led by millennials. Say that 1,000 times fast.
Fantastic. That's where
You
the
know,
whole
you
journey
did,
really started. Yeah. So I started Count Me In back almost 15 years ago now. And it was only ever meant to be a small project for students at the time, but evolved to be so much more, with chapters in 104 countries, more than 10 million young people, next generation leaders engaged in that movement. And I spent the better part of 10 years leading the organization as CEO as we scaled and ran broadcasts, and we have curriculum being used in a dozen different countries. And that early on afforded me the opportunity to travel to different cities, countries, to meet with our team members in different places. And that was the starting point for me, where I realized that even though community is universal and how relationships show up is very much universal, how they show up, how relationships are formed, and how they're nurtured is actually very different depending on how you were raised or where you were raised, your culture, beliefs, background, traditions. So I started picking up all these ideas and strategies and frameworks from different places as I was traveling, and kind of put on my researcher hat and realized, gosh, we have so much to learn back in North America and the westernized world from different cultures, different ways of life. And that really informed the way that I deliver keynotes today.
what are some, excuse me, I just sneezed. What are, there are, there's cultures, there's I've been an expat for over 25 years, the overwhelming majority of my adult professional life, and I can identify with there's nuance, not just country to country, but region to region. With the United States, Miami is quite different than Seattle. Seattle is quite
Sure.
different than Pocatello, Idaho. Saskatchewan is different than Newfoundland. Costa Rica is very different than Nicaragua, and on and on.